It's not often that a device comes on my desk that I am extremely excited about. And in the past, there have been an array of companies that want to build a perfect Game Boy handheld. There's emulation, there's modifications that are admittedly getting cheaper and more affordable, but there's no Western company that is building something flawless with a good customer service until now. This is the ModRetro Chromatic, a premium device made of metal that can play your Game Boy and Game Boy Color cartridges in a way that's incredibly nostalgic. We had the opportunity to talk with the founder on our podcast, and I've put this through the test, quite literally. One of their marketing things is that they can run this over. I ran it over. I take a look at the brand new display that isn't seen anywhere else on any other console, and the fact that it can play your games using AA batteries, using link cables, it's just incredibly nostalgic and reminds me of the good old days of playing with the Game Boy Color. So let's jump into the review because this is one of my favorite devices ever. Palmer Luckey made it very clear in our interview that his goal is to make the perfect modern Game Boy, even if it means he loses money.
I am losing money by doing this, by selling this, but my goal is to bring something into the world that wouldn't exist otherwise.
Thankfully for him, he founded Oculus and sold it to Facebook many years ago, so he's one of the only few who has the opportunity to quite literally chuck money at building the perfect Game Boy Color, and he's pretty much nailed that. Now let's talk about how the product feels in general, because it is a fairly small but heavy device. The first thing that came to my head when I held the Chromatic was just how similar it feels to the original Game Boy Color. It's as if their design team crafted it to feel near identical to its older, damaged brother. It's why I mentioned that this device feels incredibly nostalgic, and ModRetro has designed every curve, every screen, and every pixel with retro intent, which is very obvious as soon as you look at it and get it in your hands. Their design compass was not to change features of the original handhelds, but to enhance them. For example, starting on the back, the way the device is powered is by using AA batteries, just like the good old days. Inserting them relit the dopamine I had when I inserted my batteries into my Game Boy Color that I received for Christmas as a kid. What's pretty cool as well is that they'll eventually offer a rechargeable battery pack as well if you want to connect up the USB-C. So you can make it as modern as you like, but for me, just keeping with the AA batteries is just a nostalgic finger kiss. The battery cover itself is also metal, like the entirety of the shell. Typically, many companies would overlook the design of a simple battery cover, but not ModRetro. It features a modern metal latch that clips in with reliability, and the inside features rubber pads so that it stops the batteries themselves from rattling around when gaming. The more you look at the device with intent, the more you'll realize that this is an incredibly well-made product and no inch has been skipped. The cartridge slot itself works and will greet you with the plastic scrape when sliding it in, alongside a lightly forced clock when it hits the pins. The on-off switch is super sturdy too and takes inspiration from the Game Boy DMG, so again you'll hear the loud click from the plastic slider that cracks to the side when used, letting everyone in your radius know that you're no longer interested in their conversations about the stock market and instead want to trade Pokemon and battle the shit out of the gym leaders. Around the sides of the Chromatic you'll find your ports. As mentioned, it has a sturdy on-off switch, however like the Game Boy it doesn't feature the locking mechanism that keeps the cartridge from being pulled out by kids when in game. This is because it can play Game Boy and Game Boy Color cartridges, so it wouldn't even be possible. But if there's any company out there that could have made this possible, I believe it's ModRetro. It's not a disadvantage, you know, it's pretty obvious that they couldn't have installed this the way they wanted to, but I have a 10-month-old now, and he just wants to play with anything that I give my attention to. And there was a moment where he did pull out the cartridge, and luckily I managed to save. But could that have corrupted my save? Could that have corrupted other games or damaged stuff? Maybe. So a locking mechanism would have been appreciated, but again, me not being an engineer or a product designer, I just don't know how they would have got around this. On the right, you will find a volume wheel that sticks out far enough to not have to turn the device around to find the wheel itself. It's very obvious on the fingers. Below that is your menu button, which brings up ModRetro's custom menus, which offers the user to change brightness, turn on and off silent mode, change display settings such as frame blend, which makes certain aspects transparent in certain Game Boy Color games, and color correction, which makes streaming look better when plugged into a PC or a Mac. The menu is super simple and opens up some minor customizations, and it's likely this will get some more upgrades as the months and years go by. And as of today, like literally maybe 10 minutes before filming this, Torin, their marketing guy, or their co-founder, messaged me that you can in fact update the firmware on both PC and Mac. Originally, a couple weeks ago, it was just PC, but they've managed to get the Mac updating stuff working, which is good to know because you just plug it into your Mac and PC, download the file, update, bang, easy peasy. Then finally on the side there is a trading cable port, which does indeed work very well, as it should. I traded Pokemon between devices, it works well, and it's just another lovely feature, and I'm so glad they kept this because I believe some companies just overlook that, and it's a neat feature. It's one of the best features actually of the Game Boy Color. Now the face. The shape of the face again takes inspiration from the original Game Boy, with 3 sharp corners and a curved corner at the bottom right. Half of the device is taken up by the absolutely stunning display that is protected by a panel of sapphire crystal glass that protects it from scratches. This sapphire glass is incredible and somehow makes the screen feel impenetrable. ModRetro has kept the large bezels to keep the screen to the original size of its predecessors. After speaking with the CEO, Palmer described this display as being as close to the real thing as possible, yet modern enough to make it look like nothing on the market. The 2.56-inch display with a resolution of 160 by 144 is custom made by ModRetro to be seen on no other handheld. It was developed in-house by their team and it's technically the world's only pixel-accurate Game Boy display. I can't get over how beautiful this is. It makes the games look identical to the original's pixel structure, yet vibrant and sharp enough to look new. It's a unique display that blows my mind every time I turn it on, and is easily visible in direct sunlight even if my pictures and videos show otherwise. Most modern displays over-modernize the pixels to make them look seamless and attached, whereas the ModRetro display keeps the square lines that make up the uniqueness of the Game Boy display, keeping the vintage obscurities that we all remember. It's one of the main reasons I love playing on this device. It feels like what I thought I experienced as a child on that Christmas. Underneath the display, you will find graphics baked onto the face. Those that order early will receive a first edition chromatic, a slight nod to the first edition Pokemon cards because Palmer is an absolute Pokemon nerd. And there's also unique colored stripes on the bottom left of the device to give the handheld a unique look. The buttons used are perfectly crafted with high-end PBT crystalline polymer. I rarely use the words perfect because perfection rarely exists, but the buttons used are truly impressive. The D-pad is strong, has very little movement to it, yet enough direction to move diagonally with confidence, and each press will reflect a light but attentive clicking noise. The action buttons are high gloss and bounce nicely with a plastic click to them, but not a cheap plastic. It's high quality, reactive, and sounds just like the original. The clicking noises of the action buttons are just incredibly nostalgic. I don't know if you can hear this. That's the Chromatic, this is the Game Boy DMG. Game Boy DMG, ModRetro. Very, very similar. So how well does it play Game Boy games? As you might imagine, flawlessly. The technology and board inside replicates the cartridges with confidence, primarily thanks to the gorgeous display, high quality speaker, decent battery life, and nostalgic feel of the shell. It doesn't change the Game Boy experience, instead it pays tribute to it with respect and no strings attached. The process is as easy as inserting the cartridge and snapping the switch to on. In a second, you'll be greeted with the display and pulled into the array of Game Boy games that you have in your collection. It's likely after your first few hours that you'll be searching for new Game Boy games to explore, or exploring your favorite retro game shops to find some new gems to add to your collection, in hope that you can experience your childhood in a modern, refreshing take. ModRetro has made it as simple as it was back in the 90s without overcomplicating things like the Analog Pocket does. And it even shows that in their unboxing experience. When you unbox it, it comes not only with the console, but batteries and a new Tetris game. Just like the original Game Boy did when it launched back in 1989 in the early 90s. It's ready to go out of the box as if you were giving it to someone at Christmas who was like really desperate to find AA batteries, but instead it's just ready to go, which I feel like is another nod to Palmer and their team knowing what's nostalgic, not only with the product, but the experience around the product when we received it as a child. I tested an array of cartridges, including Rumble Pack games that worked as it should with no issues to the quality of the Rumble, and the same goes for the Game Boy Camera too. It all works as expected. When your battery starts to die, you will see an on-screen symbol in the top right. It shows roughly 30 to 60 minutes before your batteries are fully out. There's a small LED indicator at the bottom that will also show red. After tinkering with the device and taking a look at its insides, I was excited to see a couple of things that have not yet been spoken about openly, and that's a Bluetooth module and a Wi-Fi module. This makes me believe that there could be new updates to the device that would allow customers to enable this, opening up the opportunity to sync up Bluetooth headphones and Bluetooth controllers. The Wi-Fi module opens up opportunity too, not only because ModRetro entice their customers to modify the device as they please, which yes, it does void the warranty, so watch out, but it could offer over-the-air updates, or as Tor and Henderson explained, what I really want to see is the Wi-Fi module do LAN stuff. Now, I haven't even thought of that, but imagine trading Pokemon and doing LAN stuff over Wi-Fi and playing with friends thousands miles away. That would be pretty damn cool. From what I'm aware after speaking with the team for weeks is that ModRetro want to focus on the launch first and then put some serious time into creating some big updates for its users. So only time will tell what the team are planning on doing, but the modules are a sign that they're planning something pretty damn serious. Would I have liked to have seen this launch on day one? Yes, I can imagine so, but there's no harm in patiently waiting for some really nice updates that I think is going to come to the Chromatic. While I was visiting the ModRetro booth at EGX in London, I overheard a statement that was along the lines of, yeah, we even ran over it with a car. And me being the reviewer that I am, I'm like, wow, that's a pretty big statement, because I don't think there's any console or handheld of this size and caliber that can take that sheer pressure of being ran over by a vehicle. And admittedly, when I got on the train home, I forgot about it, but I picked up this bit of marketing. It's a brochure, and in it is a advertisement of a tire running over one of the products. And me being me, I had to try it. I had to try and run over the device. So what I did is I actually ran over the prototype. Now I want to make very clear that this is not a fair test. Did I do some kind of calculation or put it under a fair pressure amount? No, I just ran over it. I just heard someone ran over it, so I wanted to do it too. So I used the prototype device that isn't finished, and I used my vehicle, which is a Tesla Model Y, which weighs over 2,000 kilograms. So this is a very heavy vehicle, and it's not the final product. But I did it anyway, and as I imagined, it didn't go well. The screen cracked, I heard some braking, and it just didn't look good. The liquid display actually broke and shattered. The battery pack on the back is a little bit dented, and the on-off button was stretched and bent, so I couldn't actually turn it on and off the device. I did put the device on when it went under the vehicle, and I just can't get it to work now. So can the ModRetro Chromatic take a car in terms of it being ran over? I'm gonna say no, and I don't want to call out the team there. I just think it was maybe mentioned at a whim, and maybe this image isn't real, but I want to see ModRetro actually run it over, and it may survive with a lighter vehicle. As mentioned, this is a very heavy vehicle that I used, but my unit didn't survive, and I don't want to test the real unit because then I wouldn't have something to review still, you know, so the prototype got sacrificed. But I had to review that, and I had to test that, because at the end of the day, if a company's going to say they can run over it, some reviewer needs to be stupid enough to put it to the test. And fortunately for me, I had a spare unit to do so, which is all thanks to ModRetro. It's crazy to think that this is ModRetro's first mass-produced product. It's truly close to flawless, and it excites me to see a new brand make waves in the Game Boy community with a truly high-end device with cool people behind it that actually care. As mentioned, ModRetro isn't just about the Chromatic. In fact, in the future, it will play a small part of their business. ModRetro is also about bringing new retro games to life and supporting the unique developers. We will also see new devices come to fruition. Palmer gave Retro Dodo readers an exclusive by saying in our interview that we are certainly working on a Game Boy Advance focused handheld someday.
We're certainly going to end up doing Game Boy Advance someday.
So I can imagine that we might not just see a Chromatic, but maybe a Chromatic Advance. And in our interview, which I suggest you watch because there is a lot to take in, it was an hour long, he talks about the Neo Geo and possibly a Game Gear. So who knows what the ModRetro community and the team behind it are going to do, but it opens up a hell of a lot of opportunity for the retro gaming developers out there, which I absolutely love. The ModRetro Chromatic is the best way to play Game Boy and Game Boy Color cartridges, and it's likely to stay that way for a very long time. The team have crafted a remarkable device that ignites the inner child in me and sticks to the retro layouts and visuals in a way that's nostalgic yet refreshing. I struggle to believe that anyone can make anything better than this. It's the perfect tribute to the Game Boy and will remain one of my favorite handhelds for a very long time. Some may be put off by the $199 price tag, but I'm very certain that if you were to purchase this, you would never need to buy a Game Boy or a Game Boy handheld emulator ever again. I'm finding it really hard to find things to complain about here, as you can probably tell from the review. I guess I would have liked to see the modules go live upon launch and perhaps the ability to buy a wireless charging upgrade in the future, but I was informed here that it's impossible due to the device's architecture, so that ain't gonna come, which is a bit unfortunate because I just imagined it would be a upgrade pack or a portable pack that you would just put in, but unfortunately that's just a no-go. I would also like to see a feature that allows me to lock my device. Perhaps on the menu system, I can just press it, enter a pin. This basically allows me to keep my 10-month-old child away from deleting save states or, changing things without me wanting it. And I think this would be an easy fix for ModRetro to do in a simple software update. How hard can it be to just have to press the menu button and do a pin or a passcode to get into it, right? These are very small tweaks and take nothing away from the incredible experience. The team have thought of everything and have solid reason why things are done the way that they are. This is hands down one of the best retro handhelds of the year, and I love it. If you enjoyed our review, be sure to check out our written review on our website, and if you enjoy what you see here and want to support us, we do have a Patreon. There you have it. I hope you enjoyed this review. There's purchase links below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.